Hello, everyone. Today we are going to be reading a book that's part of the Getting to Know the World's Greatest Artists series. It's written and illustrated by Mike Venezia, and it's about the artist Faith Ringgold. Faith Ringgold was born in New York City in 1930. She grew up during a time of a lot of prejudice and discrimination in the United States. When she became a professional artist, Faith fought hard to make sure that African American artists received the attention and respect that they deserved. Faith Ringgold is known for her paintings, prints, masks, and soft sculptures. These works of art often show her feelings about being an African American woman. Faith's most famous works are her story quilts. Faith makes quilts by sewing together printed canvases and quilted fabric. Then she adds handwritten stories. With Faith's stories quilts, you get to see great pictures and read about them at the same time. Faith Ringgold, who was born Faith Jones, grew up in the section of New York City called Harlem. In the early 1900s, thousands of African Americans from southern states had moved to Harlem to find jobs and a better life. Many great jazz musicians, singers, athletes, and authors and artists lived in Harlem during the 1930s. On hot summer nights, Faith's family and neighbors would go up to the roof of their apartment building to cool off. Because the roof was covered with tar paper, everyone called it Tar Beach. At night, Faith loved to look up in the sky and look at the stars. She could see her favorite bridge, the George Washington Bridge, all lit up. One of Faith's most famous story quilts is about the magic she felt on one of those hot summer evenings. Storytelling was always an important part of Faith's life. When she was a little girl, Faith stayed up late listening to her parents, aunts, and uncles tell stories about their family history. Faith learned a lot, and it was great fun. Before people had television in their homes, storytelling and listening to the radio were major forms of entertainment. Faith and her brother and sister loved listening to radio shows. They let their imaginations run wild. When Faith was really little, she thought people were inside the radio talking through the speaker. As an adult, Faith said she didn't remember much about her early school years. She would never forget the lively jazz shows that she saw at the theater as a child, however. Jazz is an exciting style of music that was originated by African Americans. Faith thought that the lively shows she saw were art, even more than paintings and sculptures were. Later, Faith would paint and make prints of jazz musicians and singers. These pictures are so colorful and full of life that you can almost hear the jazz music when you look at them. Even though Faith was always interested in art, she didn't take many art classes in high school. She did practice at home, though. Faith often did portraits of friends and family members. When she went to the City College of New York, Faith studied education and art. It was in college that Faith made up her mind to become a serious full-time artist. One day, her instructor insulted a drawing that she had made of a mountain scene. The instructor told Faith to label her mountains so he could tell what they were. He also told Faith that he didn't think she had the talent to become an artist. That was all Faith needed to hear. She decided then and there to show her art teacher and everyone else that she could be an artist. A good one, too. Faith started doing paintings that were more meaningful to her. They were about things she saw going on in the United States at the moment, things that African Americans were experiencing, especially African American women. Faith took what she had learned in school and combined it with the discovery she had made about African art. Faith studied and copied patterns, shapes, rhythms, and colors used in African art. She also became inspired by great African American artists like Jacob Lawrence. She began to add these ideas into her paintings. Faith discovered something while on a trip to Europe that made it easier for her to show her work around. She saw an exhibition of ancient paintings from Tibet that were framed in cloth. These cloth frames were called Tonkas. Faith thought Tonkas would look great with her paintings. Now Faith could forget about the heavy wooden frames and glass. Tonkas allowed her to fold up or roll up her paintings. This made it much easier and less expensive to ship her work to galleries and art shows. Faith's mother, Willie, sometimes helped her daughter make the Tonkas. Willie was perfect for the job. She had become a well-known fashion designer in Harlem, and she really knew how to sew. Faith had loved sewing from the time she was a little girl. But it wasn't long before Faith was using her sewing skills to create her famous quilts. Quilt making is an African American tradition. In the 1800s, slave women would make quilts for their owners. They often added colorful shapes and designs that came from their African past. Faith loved writing stories to go along with her quilt paintings. Writing was just about as important to Faith as painting and sculpting. It's much better to see a real life Faith Ringgold quilt than a picture of one. It's interesting to see how the stitched pieces of the painted canvas together and made her colorful cloth frames. It's fun to read the stories on the quilts too. If you can't find a real Faith Ringgold story quilt to look at, you can check out her many beautiful illustrated children's books. A great example is her first book, Tar Beach. It tells the story of Cassie Lightfoot, the main character from the Tar Beach story quilts. Faith Ringgold has worked hard to make her dream of becoming a full-time artist come true. Today, her artwork can be seen in museums and on walls of public buildings all over the United States. Faith has proven in her own life that if someone really, really wants to do something, they can. She believes that just like Cassie Lightfoot, the little girl in Tar Beach story, anyone can fly.